Hello, everyone. This is Lawrence Sutton, and we are here today, not with Chris Morris, but we're with Brandon Taylor and Kip Capley. How's it going, guys?
Hey, Lawrence. Glad to be with you today.
Always a pleasure.
It is. I'm glad you guys came in. We couldn't do the show live on normally like we do on Friday, so we had to do it today on Wednesday. So I'm glad to see you guys are here, and this is what we say about this show. We're not politically correct, we're biblically correct.
That's right.
And there's two things you're not supposed to discuss with proper people. And that is politics and religion.
That's right.
And we do both of those. Want to give a shout out to Todd Warner. Todd Warner sponsors our show.
Okay.
So, give Todd a shout out. Good conservative. I mean, he's right there with Kip. Kip's going to be our favorite, obviously, because he's our guy. But,
He's the native son.
Todd,
Yeah.
but Todd's pretty conservative.
He is.
Todd's a pretty good dude.
Very conservative.
But he's not from Lawrence County, so, we can only go so far with you.
Yeah.
Well, this is true. This is true.
Can't all be blessed.
That's right.
So I'm hitting it hard today, Brandon. I'm glad you came in because you understand a lot of these things, and I want to go over the Jubilee, the 50-year Jubilee. Will you explain to everybody about the Jews' 50-year Jubilee for us?
Well, first off, let me say that in my defense, you didn't tell me a lot about what we're going to be talking about, so I didn't do a lot of show prep.
No, we never
we may
do
have to dig
it.
something up as we're going, but but I think it's good. It makes better. You get that raw edge, and I love that raw feeling of this. So I appreciate that, and I'm glad because this would be like our conversation we had. So This is our conversation before the show. We're about to have it right now.
That's right. That's
for
right.
Everybody's listening. Yeah. But the Jubilee is the year that the Jews celebrate every 50 year. They count off 7 sets of 7. They count the 49 years. And then on the 50th year, that is a year of rest. They always do a year of rest. They always have a sabbatical year every 7th year. So on the 49th year is a sabbatical year of rest. They let the land rest. And then they also, on the 50th year, is the 2nd year of rest. And every 50th year is the Jubilee. And in the Old Testament, you're just real quick version, in the Old Testament, your property would return back to its original owner. So you would lease a piece of property, but if I were to lease a piece of property to you or to Kip, you would use it till the next Jubilee. And at the next Jubilee, so you would lease it an amount of years left to the next Jubilee.
Right.
And so everything would reset because inheritance was big in the Old Testament. It's big in America today, which we line up with the Old Testament on that.
It is, and the other thing that would be wiped out is debts.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so here's where I'm going with this. So I had been doing some studying, and I'm going to take us all the way back to the 1517. And I'm going to tell you why I'm taking us all the way back to 1517. As people keep trying to tell us that, well, Palestine is a country and the Jews have invaded their country, Palestine. Well, there's a couple things false with that. One thing is in Arabic, there is no P in Arabic. So they couldn't even pronounce Palestine, okay? And correct me if I'm wrong, but the word Palestine actually came about from the word Philistine.
Absolutely.
And when Rome kicked the Jews out in the 70 AD, they started naming it Palestine in order to mock the Jews.
Okay, that's right.
So, again, I'm going at it from here because in 1517 is when the Ottoman Empire took over. Mm-hmm. And as we know, the Ottoman Empire in the Middle East controlled the Middle East for 400 years until 1917. So what we're dealing with, Brandon, and to me that's important, is you have 8 Jubilee periods of time from 1517 to 1917, and that's the number of new beginnings for God. Okay? But something happened 50 years before. And a lot of people don't understand with this is that in the 7th Jubilee, which happened in 1867, Jerusalem was discovered again, the city of David, after 1,800 years of being buried. And that, to me, began the restoration of the land. And I'm going to tell you what happened is the Ottoman Sultan issued in 1867 a law opening up Israel back to the Jews.
Okay.
So that came from 1867. So then we come back 50 years later to 1917. And this is where we're going to kind of begin on the 8th Jubilee. And do you know what happened in 1917, Brandon?
Balfour Declaration.
Okay. Explain the Balfour Declaration.
In short, Britain had always controlled, Britain had control at that time of the land, modern day Israel. And in the Balfour Declaration, they had granted the Jews a chance to go back. It was post World War I. All world wars and within history, if you want to look since Jesus Christ, and I'm going to throw something out there, some people may disagree,
Right.
but all world wars are somehow focused or affiliated with the Jewish nation of some sort, if you go back through history.
Right.
From the Crusades all the way down to World War I, World War II. Look at what we're entering into now, a major conflict.
Yes.
The Jews are always
Yeah.
in part of that, okay?
Good point. Yeah.
In 1917, they had actually give the Jews a piece of property there in the land of Israel. The Ottomans had controlled that land, and a lot of people don't know this, Lawrence, but the Ottomans had leased that property out.
Right.
And so through a process of deforestation and over-mining, they had turned
They destroyed
Israel.
it.
Yeah, they completely depleted the land of all its resources. If
Right.
you read the Old Testament and then you look at modern pictures of Israel, you're like, where was this taken at? Where are these trees that they cut? Where are all these different places that they had all this rich soil and all the land that was so great? But they had actually ruined the property there, and they'd leased it out. They actually built railroads through Israel, and these Ottoman, they were like a hierarchy, if you would. Their top tier, they were Muslims, but they would come through there and they would actually charge rent, and they would try to make a pass through there about every year, every 2 years, and they would collect rent from those people. And so the Jewish people started really working with the British Empire to get back into that area, and the British people really didn't have any connection with Islam. I'll just tell you. If you want to look up Winston Churchill, what I'm about to say is not politically correct, Lawrence. So here you go.
That's okay, but we're not
if you want
politically
to
correct.
quote Winston Churchill on what he thought of Islam, he said that Islam in a man was like rabies in a dog. That's Winston Churchill actually said that. And so when he was a young man, he was actively involved in these early years, early 1900s.
Yeah.
So they had started trying to acquire property there, and they started going in and buying the property from the Ottomans, is what was going on.
Right. Well, the Ottomans also in 1917 they fled.
They did.
They gave it up. They're like, we're out of here. We're done. We want nothing to do with this, and they ran basically with their tails between their legs.
But for 50 years prior, the Jews had been purchasing
Yeah,
that
they've been-
property.
right.
Right, for those Jubilees. And so by the time it gets down to 1917, Britain had agreed, well, we're not going to drive you out of here. We're going to let you live here and give you a place. Never agreed to give them a state or a territory or anything like that. Didn't even let them be sovereign. And by this time, something to think about, all Hebrew language had almost been totally wiped off the face of the earth. There were no by the time you get into the early 1900s, there were no streets on the face of this planet that had a Hebrew name on them, because none of these other nations where the Jews had lived had a Hebrew street name.
Really?
And so the modern Jews have revived an ancient language that was actually considered dead.
I didn't know that.
The
Wow.
Hebrew nation completely wiped away.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that too. I mean, even our New Testament, when it was originally written, Kip was written in Greek.
Yep, I knew that.
It was not written in Hebrew.
Yep.
So I mean, even 2,000 years prior, or 1,900 years prior, it had already started being phased out.
Absolutely.
So why is these jubilees are important? And you mentioned something about the Jews starting in 1867 going back and buying up the land and things. We're going to touch on that here in a minute. But I want to stick with this Jubilee right now.
Okay, go ahead.
And so we have 50 years from 1917. It takes us to 1967. Kip, do you know what happened in 1967?
A lot of things, but I think I know what you're alluding to. But go ahead.
Well, what I'm alluding to is we had the 6-Day War
Yes, sir.
in Israel.
Right.
And that is when Israel really became a true nation again, because they, for the first time in over 2,000 years, an Israeli soldier marched into Jerusalem, the capital.
Well, they took Temple Mount at that day,
Yes.
on that day, too.
Yes. Yes, they did. And then they turned around and gave it back. General Uzi, you've heard of
Yes,
the
sir.
Uzi, hadn't you?
Absolutely.
Well, General Uzi,
It's so offensive.
yeah, I know. I mean, it hurts my feelings because,
It should hurt your feelings.
It does.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But General Uzi said, no, we're not going to take the Temple Mount. We're going to give it back to the Muslims.
Right.
It just wasn't that time. But anyway, I digress there.
Okay.
So we have...
Keep going. I'm tracking you.
Yeah,
we're there.
So
We're
we
there.
have. This is why to me it's important with Israel capturing Jerusalem.
Okay.
Because Israel was not complete. They did not have their capital at that time. And really and truly, if we read the Bible, for Jesus to come back, he touches down in Jerusalem on the Mount of Olives.
Absolutely.
So if the Jews are not in control of Jerusalem, the Messiah is not coming back until all these things take place, because everything that God says is 100% true and 100% accurate.
Yep. Okay.
So now we come to another 50-year Jubilee, and from 1967 it takes us to 2017. Well, in 1967 the Jews did capture Jerusalem again, but no country, not even the United States, would recognize Jerusalem as the capital. They always said it was Tel Aviv until 2017. And we actually had two parts of our government recognize Jerusalem as the capital. One was the Senate. And, you alluded to this earlier before, what the Senate had voted on, Brandon, or
making it eternal capital.
making it the eternal capital.
Jerusalem, the eternal capital. That's right.
And then
And
Donald,
the point of that was so it could never be changed again.
that's correct.
Let me say that. They were trying to make it's a bold statement, and Kip, you're a legislator. It's a bold statement when a government tries to set an eternal precedent.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's bold.
It's very bold.
We're declaring it not for this time, but for all time. That let it never be changed again.
Yeah, it's a huge lift.
And then what did Donald Trump do, Kip?
It's the same thing. Recognized Jerusalem,
And we actually,
and we put an embassy. In
That's
Jerusalem,
correct.
Which was a huge. I mean, that was talking about monumental.
Can I put something in here?
yes,
And I know you're tracking, so I that's one of the fastest hours in radio. I get it.
absolutely,
So I want to throw a few things out there because you're talking about a topic that's near and dear to my heart.
Right.
Okay. Matter of fact, I believe I was born to do this. That's if you want to know. Some people tell you that.
hey, I've sat underneath you
So,
for years in
this is when I feel
church.
like I was born. When you see a Gentile king, so not a Jew.
Yep.
When you see a Gentile king
And that's an important distinction.
with a Jewish first right-hand man, big things happen for Israel. So let's go back to Joseph and Pharaoh. In the book of Genesis, you had Joseph who became only second to the king. Big things happened for the nation of Israel. Matter of fact, the nation of Israel was actually developed there in the land of Goshen. Built the pyramids. I mean, this is what happened. They did things that they can't replicate. The reason why Egypt, let me go ahead and make some statements. People can call me whenever they want to. The Egyptians cannot tell you how they built the pyramids because they
Joseph.
didn't do it.
That's right.
That's exactly right.
Okay, that's why. And so then you have another example of this would be Daniel
Right.
and Nebuchadnezzar.
Yep.
Okay, ruling the earth. I'm telling you, it was big things happened for the Jews even during this time. Okay, and then let's take it one step further. You could go to Nehemiah. He was cupbearer for the king Xerxes, and then you have let's go even further on down the list. Let's go down to Donald Trump And his son-in-law was Jared Kushner, who was 100% Orthodox Jew. And I'm not talking Reform Jew for those of you that go look this up. He was an Orthodox Jew.
Yep.
Donald Trump's grandchildren are Jewish. And they called him anti-Semitic, which when I heard that, I'm like, is no one going to call this one out? It's almost like saying we deer hunt with AR-15s. I'm like, is no one, please, somebody say something here.
Yep.
But his daughter, Ivanka, actually converted 100% to Judaism so she could marry Jared Kushner. Jared Kushner was his top advisor, period, to go look it up for yourself.
Yep.
Worked behind the scenes, did the Abraham
And
Accords.
good friends. Even Jared's father's friends with Trump even.
Charles Kushner.
Yes.
So yes, we have, and they were close with Benjamin Netanyahu.
That's
So
right.
I'm going to add one more thing in. I'm not trying to hijack your show, but
No.
this is just something I want to talk about. A lot of people don't know this. This is just facts. You can go research this very easily. Benjamin Netanyahu actually knows Jared Kushner's family very well. Benjamin Netanyahu had actually stayed in their house, Charles Kushner's house, and when Jared Kushner, Donald Trump's son-in-law, was a teenager, this is wild. Benjamin Netanyahu actually stayed in Jared's room, gave up his bed so Benjamin Netanyahu could stay in their house.
Wow.
And then he stayed in the basement for a period of time because he visited with them. And then later on, Jared Kushner went with Benjamin Netanyahu. He does a tour with young Jews, or used to back through the 90s, because he was a war hero. His family, the Netanyahus, are war heroes.
They're
And,
warriors. His brother and Bibi.
right.
Bibi both were big time warriors.
That's right. So he would take them on a tour of all of modern Israel. They would go to the concentration camps, and they would go through Israel, and they ended up at Masada. And the last place that they're teaching that he taught them was Masada. And it was like a 4 to 6 weeks thing that you went with Benjamin Netanyahu, and he took groups of young men, like 30 men, and he took them on this world tour. And Jared Kushner was one of the guys that went on that tour. So when you saw Trump come into play, I knew this was going to be huge for the nation of Israel. And here we have Trump right now. What do we have? We have a war, and we have a president who was who did most benefits for Israel is Donald Trump, hands down.
Well, hands down, the
too.
president has. But I want to bring up something, and as soon as I say it, I think you'll know where I'm going with this. When you mentioned Daniel and Nebuchadnezzar, there was another king that Daniel he had represented, as well as Nebuchadnezzar. Wasn't it King Cyrus?
Cyrus came along a little later.
Okay.
Yeah, Cyrus came around a little later. And the Jews likened Donald Trump to King Cyrus.
Right.
Which, if you want to read in the Bible, the book of Ezra.
Yep.
Okay, and so they even made a coin. I actually have it. I wish I'd have brought it. I've got a coin that's been minted by the Jews. And in that, it has the likeness of Cyrus in the background, and then the likeness of Donald Trump on top of it. And they call them the Jubilee Kings.
Yeah, and see, it's kind of funny. We're talking
all kind of stuff.
Yeah, we're talking about Jubilee here.
Wow.
So Cyrus,
I didn't know that either.
do you know of another world leader after Cyrus, between Cyrus and Donald Trump, that recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel?
Between Cyrus and Trump?
Yep.
No, nothing's coming to my mind, Rob.
Me neither.
Yeah.
I went and researched it, and the last time a world-type leader had said that Jerusalem is Israel's capital was King Cyrus.
Okay.
So,
Wow.
yeah, I mean, that was just that's just I'll give you that one for free, like Brandon would say.
Quick plug here, piggybacking on what you were talking about earlier, and this is not relative to what we were talking about, but actually, when I lived in Germany for a little while, when Dad was deployed, and a lot of people don't know that, but when Dad was in the Army and was deployed in Germany, we actually went to a couple of the concentration camps. We went to Dachau and did the full experience, I would call it, and it was just being a kid. It was, obviously I wasn't. It's not something that you get excited to do. It's just something that, my parents felt was good for my, learning and stuff like that. We went, and I can still remember to this day. I mean, I remember it like it was yesterday. We went into the gas chambers and the guard shacks and where they stayed and where they slept, and it was just, you could just feel it, the heaviness of Dachau, and it's wild. And a lot of people don't realize too, the German people are actually ashamed as they should, you know.
They were ashamed even then.
Then, yeah, oh yeah. Well, I mean, you can go through the history books and look at the journals of the German, even the SS officers that didn't know what was going on. You can go back through their journals and look and just,
Right.
you know, they even talk about how ashamed they were of what they were fighting for, and they had no idea because Hitler actually kept it a huge secret until the U.S. found out, except for some top officers that knew, and then obviously the guards. But yeah, it's a very serious place, and it's an interesting experience for sure for people that get the opportunity to go. I would go because it's a you know, you see about it, you see it in movies and TV shows, but actually when you go, it hits you differently. It's really wild.
It really does, and you know this is the whole thing of what's going on right now with Hamas.
Exactly.
Is Hamas though is not ashamed.
No,
Hamas
they're
is proud
Yes,
of
sir.
it. Hamas
Yes.
is celebrating, and you know what? I've heard this. You know, they're talking about, well, is the innocent Palestinians. But these same innocent Palestinians right now are the ones that are celebrating in the streets when Hamas attacked. There was one of the prisoners that has recently been released, okay? And the prisoner was talking about he escaped the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And he was traveling through the streets trying to get back into Israel out of Gaza.
Yeah.
It was the Palestinian people that captured him and gave him back to Hamas.
Yep, that's correct.
So these people are not innocent. These people voted for Hamas
Yes,
over 80%
that's correct.
with Hamas.
Yes,
So
that's a staggering number.
I'm going to
by
say
the way.
something, and you guys are in. You know my role in politics in this county and around
Yeah.
different places.
Yeah.
But the people are responsible for the government,
That's right.
not the
That's
government
right.
responsible for the people.
that is correct.
We've seen
Whatever we let our
videos,
government do, you know, it's on us.
and I don't want to, again, like I said, I don't want to hijack this. For too
You're
long.
not hijacking. You're part of the show, guys.
I've seen videos, and I try not to watch a lot of it because it's just so
It's
horrific.
terrible.
It's horrific, and people don't understand. I saw a video of 3 Hamas, and they're terrorists, that were shooting grenade launchers at civilian vehicles that were Jews that were on the border, and they were quite. And you can see the video, and they're celebrating and
Yep.
parading, and the guy's got it on his phone,
Right.
and he's recording it, and you can see these Hamas terrorists shooting grenade launchers at civilians that are just driving down the road. They're just driving it, and they're blowing up these cars.
Yeah.
They're beheading children. They're parading these pregnant women that have been raped and murdered and
right.
cut their heads off.
That's right.
And they're quite literally parading their dead, naked bodies through the streets.
That's exactly
And
what
are
they
cutting
did.
the babies out of the wombs.
Yeah, and you're saying the people that are talking about free Palestine or innocent Palestine or innocent Hamas or anything else. Are you kidding?
You know what I
What?
heard? Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton is probably my least favorite politician on the earth. I'm just going to tell you.
Yeah,
She's a
I can deal
witch.
with Barack Obama, whom I have no use for him.
Right.
sure.
I can listen to him talk better than I can Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton yesterday, look this up. She's in the news media, and I'm a Republican, but she's a Democrat.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, she was literally calling out the Democrats, going. She said this. She said, "Where are the women's rights groups at? Where are you? Where are you for women's rights? And you're not standing up for the Israelis that are being held hostage right now." And you know what I thought, Lawrence? You know what I thought, Kip? Has the Democrat Party gone so far left that now they've left Hillary Clinton behind? They've moved that far.
It's possible.
They've moved that far since 2016 that I'm going to tell you something. Hillary Clinton could get a nomination right now to run for president if she had to.
Right.
That blows my mind.
That blew my mind. That blows my mind. You're saying, I
Yeah.
thought you were going to say she was defending Hamas.
That's what I thought, too.
You know what the Democrat Party's notorious for? Kicking people out of their party and moving it further to the left.
Right.
They are.
Right.
So
I look at John DeBerry in Nashville.
yeah,
Yeah.
Kicked him out.
absolutely. Go ahead, my friend. I'm sorry.
No. This is good. This is good stuff. So we've discussed what has happened with 50-year Jubilee.
Right.
But do you know there can be 50-year periods that are judgments?
Okay.
So here's where I'm going with this. 1973, we had the Yom Kippur War. Okay, and it was actually 6 years after the 6-day war. Okay, 6 years after the 6-day war, we had the Yom Kippur War.
Okay.
Well, the Yom Kippur War was all about your Muslims trying to get back what they lost
Correct.
in the 6-Day War.
Yep.
Okay? That war happened in 73. Kip, can you tell me what happened just back in October in 2023? That's when Hamas
Talking about-
attacked
yeah,
Israel.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
That's when Hamas attacked Israel.
gotcha.
Both of these attacks were on holidays.
Yep.
When Hamas attacked in 2023, it was on Sukkot. They both days were the first Sabbath of October.
Okay.
Both attacks were land invasions, catching Israel completely by surprise. And both were exactly 50 years to the day.
Now, and I don't know the history on this, but Hamas has been attacking the Israel. The Israel's been under attack because they've been using the Iron Dome and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But you're talking about an actual land invasion, not shooting rockets back and forth and all that. You're talking about an actual
land
that's
invasion.
important as far as what
And
you
that's what I'm
saw.
saying.
That's an important aspect of it.
Yes.
And in the Western culture,
Mm-hmm.
we don't think that much about it. Okay, we celebrate anniversaries a little different than the Jewish nation
Right.
does.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't know this. There was a temple built by King Solomon on Temple Mount, right there
Yes, sir.
in Jerusalem.
Yep.
Second temple built along hundreds of years later. They built the second temple there. You can read about it in the book of Ezra if you want to go back and read through these different writings. And my point is what a lot of people don't recognize, but the Jews never forget this, is that both those temples were torn down on the same day.
That's true.
It's called
God
the
does
9th
everything.
of Av. Okay?
Yes.
So you look it up. It's the 9th of Av, and it's a fast day.
Yes.
In the Jewish nation. They
Okay.
will not eat on that day.
They won't
Yep.
do anything.
The 9th day of the month of Av, AV.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so hey, if somebody wants to look this up, watching your show. Both those temples were torn down. And even when the second temple was starting to be torn down, a lot of the Jews, because the Roman Empire came through there and tore that second temple down, when they did in 69, 70 AD, a lot of the Jews saw what the date was, and they knew, and they saw the temple was on fire. And when they saw it on fire, they turned their own swords and fell on their own swords right there on Temple Mount because they thought it was a judgment from God.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm telling you, this is deep. If people are getting this, I would tell everybody, look, this is why WDXC puts these on YouTube and Facebook, so you can go back and you can look it over. You can do your own research,
Sure.
but you can keep coming back to what we're talking about here. Here's the other thing, and I wanted to bring this up as well, is in 2017 is when the USA declared Jerusalem as the capital.
Yep.
Just like we had the Yom Kippur War happen 6 years after the 67 Six-Day War, exactly 6 years later afterwards is when Hamas attacked Israel again because of Jerusalem being declared a capital.
What's excuse me? What's the scripture in the Bible that God is, and y'all have to forgive me my ignorance, but God always said it's keep your eye on Israel. Where's that at in the Bible? It says that, so I can't remember. Let me do some Googling before I speak.
Okay. And while you do that,
Yeah.
can I throw something in? You keep bringing up 2017.
Yes.
2017 was, there's a lot that happened in this
You are
election.
right.
So I'm going to ask for a little permission right here to tear into some things politically
Let's
speaking. Because we always say we're biblical, not political, but I'm going to tell you what happens, and this is proven. The political will follow the biblical.
Amen.
Okay, now, so, and I didn't know you were going here, Lawrence, and so, but I'm glad you got me in. You got my brain working here. So we know that Donald Trump's son-in-law was a Jew,
Right.
but did you know this? Did you know that Hillary Clinton's son-in-law is a Jew?
I did know that.
So either way it was going to be, now listen to this, either way it was going to be, no matter how the election went down, we were going to have a Jew as second or a advisor possibly to
A president.
a president, or what the Bible would consider a Gentile king.
That's right.
Okay? Now, here's what's crazy about this. Hillary Clinton's son-in-law, married to Chelsea, is named Mark Mazvinsky, and he is a Reformed Jew.
Right. Which
does
they don't
not-
believe in Israel.
They don't observe anything.
Yep.
They are Reformed Jews, and so he married what? A Gentile. He married outside of Judaism. See, Reformed Jews to all Orthodox Jews, they believe they're extinction of the Jewish nation because they keep marrying outside of Judaism, and eventually there will be no more Jews.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Now, the reason, and I hope this isn't boring to people, the reason that Ivanka Trump had to convert to Judaism was because Jared was a Orthodox Jew, and they don't want to marry outside of the Jewish nationality, otherwise it will equal extinction for the Jewish nation.
Right.
So either way we had a Jew was going to be second in command, but the Reformed Jews do not believe there's any ties to Israel. They do not want Zionism. They do not want a second temple or the third temple. They do not want any of this. He would have never pushed for moving the embassy. They're the Reformed Jews, J Street Jews. So you have a Kushner who is 100% Orthodox. This man walks on Saturday to synagogue. That was in the news media. If you remember, it was always Ivanka and Jared walking with the children down the street. The children walking with them, going down to the synagogue. Why? Because he's an observant Orthodox Jew. What else does he believe? He believes he's a Zionist, as you're talking about.
Yes.
And he also wants the third temple, and he wants to reinstate Israel as a superpower on the face of this planet. That is Jared Kushner, like it or not. But I thought it was amazing that you had two polar opposites, not just running for president, but also would been in the Jewish position as in Jewish leadership. And I'm telling you, if Mark Mazinski would have had as much power as Jared Kushner, it would have went bad for the Jewish nation.
Found it.
Found it. Let's
I did
hear
find
it.
it. So it's in Zechariah chapter 12.
Okay.
That's a good
Chapter
one.
12. Okay. And if you'll just entertain me here for a second, I got a couple verses that are, bam, right what we're talking about. This is the word of the Lord concerning Israel, the Lord who stretches out the heavens, who lays the foundation of the earth, and who forms the spirit of man within himself, declares, I am going to make Jerusalem a cup that sends all the surrounding peoples reeling. Judah will be besieged as well as Jerusalem. On that day, when all the nations of the earth are gathered against her, I will make Jerusalem an immovable rock for all the nations. All who try to move it will injure themselves. On that day, I will strike every horse with panic and its rider with madness, declares the Lord. I will keep a watchful eye over the house of Judah, but I will blind all the horses of the nations. Then the leaders of Judah will say in their hearts, the people of Jerusalem are strong because the Lord Almighty is their God.
I love it. And
That's
Zechariah
12, 1 through 5, and there's some more I can keep going.
You read Zechariah, start at 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Those are written in chronological order.
Yep.
They are.
So Zechariah chapter 14 is the day of the Lord
Yeah.
and the millennial reign.
So
that's right
I want to
before
throw
that.
something in here for free, and it's
I love free stuff.
I've never figured
we
I've
do
never
love free
figured this out.
You brought a gun in here the other day, but you didn't give me that for free. So
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, this one's kind of interesting. So we're talking about Jared Kushner, and Donald Trump. Do you realize that Jared Kushner and his father bought a building across from Trump Tower?
Okay.
And it is the most expensive building that has ever been bought. They actually paid like 1.2 or 1.4 billion dollars for this building. The Kushners did.
Okay.
Okay, it's on Fifth Avenue. You know where I'm going with this, don't
I
you,
already
Brandon?
know where you're going, yeah.
So do you know what the address of that building is?
I'm ready.
666. I kid you not. I kid you not. Brandon and I, yes, go look it up.
Huh.
Brandon and I have actually discussed a little bit on this in the past, in history past. We were talking about, about not only the 666, but even with what Jared Kushner could represent, because a lot of people don't understand this, and Brandon probably can explain it better than I, and if I mess up, jump in,
You're
okay?
doing great.
But the Jewish Messiah does not necessarily have to be God,
Yeah.
okay?
That's correct.
All right? And me and Brandon, we think that whoever is going to be responsible for the building of the third temple is going to be the Jews' next Messiah, which is going to be probably either the false prophet or the Antichrist himself.
Well, if you go to, let's give people resources to go.
Okay, yes, please.
And I wish we had that TV where it would work behind us. This
I know.
would be a great time.
But we're going to have it soon.
But actually, if you go to, and people can write this down, Judaism 101.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a website. It's a Hebrew website. And what it's there for is to teach young Jewish people the Old Testament and to teach them prophecy and how the nation of Israel should work through the Old Testament. Go in there and look at the Messiah.
Yes.
And it lists a list of requirements that a person has to have to be the Messiah. Because they don't accept Jesus Christ as Messiah. They
Correct.
say he's coming. Here's what's wild. They say he's coming soon.
Yes.
And they also, the number one thing they say is he'll build the third temple.
Right.
And he'll be a political leader.
Right.
Interesting.
Now, who else has got, I mean, you want to talk about having the money and the wherewithal to do it? I mean, like I said, I'm just throwing this out there for free conjecture, you know.
Just conversation.
It's just kind of interesting that they bought a building 666. But you have Jared Kushner and his family who are worth billions of dollars, probably worth more than Donald Trump even himself, that wants that third temple and has the money and the political clout to make it happen. I mean, like I said, I'm throwing it out there for free.
Well, what did Jared Kushner give his life to do? Jared Kushner basically gave up a lot of his fortune,
Yep.
followed Donald Trump,
Yep.
and then he went on a world tour going to all kinds of nations in the Middle East working on the Abraham Accords. And he did it. And the Abraham Accords led to strengthening the nation of Israel. And given the chance, he would do it again. Okay? Given the chance, he would go for it. And I think we may see him actually back in there actually working on more Abraham Accords.
Right.
Which was amazing. And go watch that if you want to. People like to see the prophetic things in the Bible. And you're talking about a word that makes you jump out. Throughout the Bible, it says when they cry for peace and safety, warning, sudden destruction comes upon them. This is first and second Thessalonians. You can go read these books. When they say peace and safety, at the Abraham Accord signing at the White House, you can go find this at the White House. It was during COVID, so they did it all outside with cameras. They had these nations line up and sign this in 3 different languages, in English, in Hebrew, and Arabic. They said, this will bring about peace and safety. It's exactly what they said. At the White House on national television in 3 different languages globally.
I remember that too. I absolutely remember that.
It would have been around September of 2020, October time frame, if somebody wants to look that up.
Yeah. So here's something else that's interesting. When we're talking about the 6-Day War, and the 6-Day War started June the 5th of 1967. Mm-hmm. Okay? The Yom Kippur War started October 6th of 1973. Mm-hmm. That is exactly 2,315 days. Okay? 50 years later, on June 5th of 2017, exactly 50 years later from the start of the 6-Day War, the U.S. Senate passes a declaration saying Jerusalem is the eternal capital of Israel. Exactly 2,315 days later, again, like I said, this is all for free. From June 5th of 2017 takes us to October the 7th of 2023. Now, I haven't figured out what 2315 means.
Okay.
In God's calendar.
Well, I thought you were going to tell me. I'm on the edge of my seat here.
No, I
was ready for it.
I have not figured that out. But that is not a coincidence. Would you not agree with that?
No, I don't believe in coincidences. Period.
No such thing.
So, but I just found that interesting when you take and you look at that all these things are happening at the same time.
Sure.
Now, we mentioned earlier about Zionism. Mm-hmm. And how starting in 1867 the Jews started coming back to the land and started buying the land.
You need to define that Zionism.
Okay, so a guy by the name of Theodore Herzl Okay,
You sound like a candy maker.
he does.
It does sound like it.
But when you go look him up on Wikipedia, he is actually considered the founder of Zionism.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm sitting here trying to think the best way of defining Zionism. Do you have something off the top of your head?
Zionism means to ascend, so all Zionists have intentions of building a third temple and ascending the Temple Mount.
Right. So on August the 31st, 1897, Herzl convened the first Zionist Congress to bring the Jews back to the land. And he said people aren't going to believe him, but he said he just brought Israel back as a nation again. 50 years later, in 1947, the UN votes to bring Israel into the world again.
Yep.
Do you know what date they did that on?
I don't.
August 31st, 1947. Exactly 50 years after the first Israel Congress was convened and when Herzl said that he just started the nation of Israel again.
Wow.
I know. So
I'm getting a good education here.
hey, listen, I got a good education. You know,
I'm learning all kind of stuff.
I mean, typically, when we come in here, I may have a half a page of notes. I have today.
I've been taking notes while I'm sitting here. I'm afraid I'm going to forget stuff while we're talking.
Well, if you need my notes, you can have them. If you can read my writing.
Well, I barely can read my own. But here's the thing. A couple things I want to point out. Number one, you mentioned Zionists. So if you're watching modern news right now, you're going to see Hamas refer to the Jews as Zionists.
That's correct.
Okay, because they said they want to build a temple. This war that you see in Israel, and so let me correct some people out there with
Please
that look
do
this wrong. Okay.
Yes.
Because I have people that are friends of mine, they're like, all Israel, they've always been at war. They've always been fighting the Palestinians. They've always been fighting somebody, the fight with Egypt. This has been going on 1,000 years. Can I tell you something? And this right here is what blows my mind. This is the first war that has ever taken place over Temple Mount. This is not over the land of Israel. What did Hamas call this? Look it up.
A flood of
Operation Al-Aqsa flood.
Right.
The Al-Aqsa flood. Al-Aqsa is their Temple Mount mosque.
Yep.
And they call it the flood to come in and take this over to take Temple Mount back.
Now, isn't there something with Daniel calling in the end times a flood happens? Was it Daniel?
There is a little bit, but I can't nail that down to where I can put that out there for people. But
Okay,
yes,
but you know what I'm
yes,
talking about.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
But yes, there is some stuff. Well, it says in Daniel 9, if you read about we're going down a rabbit trail.
That's
big
fine.
time
Yeah,
right
let's
now.
go.
Okay, but in Daniel 9, when it talks about the Antichrist, he comes in with a flood. If people want to go read that, Daniel chapter 9, verse 27, I think. It's
And what does
the
Hamas
Antichrist
call
comes in
this?
with a flood, and they literally use the same word.
Why did they use a flood? And here's the interesting thing. Not only did Hamas use the flood, and you can go look this up. The leader of Hamas is calling it a flood, but then our media
Tried to
changed it. What did they change it to, Brandon?
I haven't been calling it that because I don't want to get it confused, but
Right.
they did change it to something else.
Yeah.
They changed it.
It's another name.
Yeah, it's another name, but they changed the word flood, but that's not what Hamas called it.
That's right.
Hamas called it the flood.
The
You got to
flood.
go back to the original. When I saw this, like on October 7th,
Yeah.
when I saw this,
Me and you
actually
talked
touch
about
off,
this.
and I saw they had put this video out. And Hamas is, and the reason why I'm saying it's Operation Flood is because you have a Hamas leader sitting in a dark room, and he's got a light behind him, so you can't see his identity because that's what cowards do.
That's right.
And he's got this light on, and he says this. He literally calls it Al-Aqsa flood. Okay, that's what he calls it. They're giving the closed caption down there verbatim.
Yeah.
But they've tried to change it. You know what the media has constantly tried to paint Hamas as a nonviolent, as the victim. But see, if they call it this, then they're fighting over Temple Mount. Well, I thought we were fighting over the Gaza Strip.
No, we're
No,
not.
they didn't fight. They didn't attack them over the Gaza Strip. Israel's not trying to take the Gaza Strip from them.
Yep, that's correct.
There is a great relationship, and people can argue if they want to. There's a great relationship with people on both sides of the Israeli border. They come over and work there all the time, and so that's just facts, plain facts. I want to throw some more information.
Keep going. This is why
we're
you're
going
here.
down a lot of stuff. Okay, so I never thought we would see Mike Johnson become Speaker of the House.
Yeah, I remember when his name was first thrown out there. I'm like, who is this?
Do you know how I first heard about Mike Johnson?
Yes, I do, because we talked about this.
So he went
with Jim Jordan, by the way.
To Israel, and they met with a man named Yehuda Glick.
Okay.
Yehuda Glick is a Temple Mount tour guide in Israel. He was born in America. He speaks very good English. He's fluent in Hebrew. He's a rabbi. They went with him. They actually met with him and took a Temple Mount tour in Israel. And I could not figure out. I mean, I've been watching Yehuda Glick for a long time. If you look him up, his name is spelled Yehuda, Yehuda, and Glick, Glick. You need to look this man up, because he is a powerhouse in Israel.
Okay.
They did an assassination attempt on him in like 2014, shot him 4 or 5 times in the chest, and the man lived.
Dang.
He come back and he said, God told me in a dream I'm going to come back. We're going to build a 3rd temple on Temple Mount. That's basically, I'm just giving you in one sentence what he said. He wrote a book and everything when he came back after being in a like comatose state. You get shot 5 times in the chest, and he was an assassin. And you know why they shot him? They said the assassin got off a motorcycle, walked right up to him point blank with a pistol, and said, "You are an enemy of the Al-Aqsa Mosque." Shot him 5 times.
Dang.
Okay,
Because he wants to build
That's
the
right.
third temple.
They tried to assassinate him. So, but they went up there on this Temple Mount tour, and the second tour that he took, the Israeli police force who monitors Temple Mount arrested Yehuda Glick on Temple Mount. And so Mike Johnson grabbed my attention, and Mike Johnson was there. There's video footage out there. You cannot find it on YouTube. You have to go to, I wish I could think of it. Maybe I will in a minute. But you have to go look at the footage that they've been doing. 12 Tribes. Go to 12 Tribes videos, and you can find a video footage of Jim Jordan and Mike Johnson taking a tour of Temple Mount and a few years ago. And Yehuda Glick gave him the tour guide. He was a tour guide, and then he got arrested. But they literally said, we are here, and we're in prophetic times. And they said, we believe the reason we're here is prophecy being fulfilled in the Bible.
Can I tell you when that was?
Mike Johnson, our Speaker of the House, said that right. It blows my mind that he is our Speaker. You couldn't have handpicked one better for me.
Brandon, you said a couple of years ago. It was actually January of 2020
Okay,
when
it
that
was.
happened.
It was
and you
right
know
before
why
COVID.
I know that? Because one only was right before COVID, but you had done a sermon about Yehuda Glick.
Yes.
And you said at that point that training, how did you say that?
Boot camp is over.
Boot camp is over.
Right.
We're about to get into serious. He called it even before we knew about COVID and what was going on with COVID. But he did a thing on Yehuda Glick on the Temple Mountain. Who knows? You might even had Jim Jordan and that video on there, because you were showing us videos of Yehuda Glick and everything that was going on then.
Right.
And then he closed out the sermon that day and said, boot camp is over, guys. It's about to start getting serious.
Yeah. But what I felt, though, was not anything.
Did that give you goosebumps? That gives me goosebumps.
I don't want to say that I saw it in the timeline of what was happening in Israel.
No,
that's why I just felt my spirit for
us.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like I saw something on the news. I'm like, oh, boot camp's over. No, it was like, this is what I felt in my spirit.
For us.
And, at that point is when I also announced we were going to have a baptismal service on Easter Sunday, which is Resurrection Sunday.
And a month later, we lost that.
They shut down all churches, and people said, what are you going to do? I said, we're going to do a baptismal service. I mean, I don't follow what Bill Lee tells me to do.
Well.
And I'm never going to. I don't care if Bill Lee was the greatest Christian ever known. I'm still not going to follow what he says.
No, I'm going to follow what God says.
But we still baptized 23 people that day on.
You can mark it down right now. We ain't doing that again.
No, we're not.
No shot.
But you can mark it down. They're going to try.
They will.
So I want to tell you guys this, or I want to end on this. Look, we got the fastest hour.
Is it over?
No, we got 5 minutes though.
Oh man!
I mean, where does time go?
We didn't even talk about.
I know. Hey, I'm just going to tell you this. When we're talking about Islam and Hamas, it is never going to stop. During the, they're saying, well, Israel needs to stop going after Hamas. They need to have a truce. We heard all this. They need to have a truce. They need to stop going after them. And then during the time when they had a ceasefire,
Yep.
what did Hamas do but attack Jerusalem and kill 4 people at a bus stop? Gunned them down in cold blood during a ceasefire. These people are never going to stop. They say this, and they say it for a reason. From river to the sea.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
That is not a two-state solution that they're talking about. They're talking about the wiping out of Israel. This is an Islamic battle cry when they say from river to the sea, Palestine will be free.
Yes.
Okay? That is an Islamic battle cry for the destruction of Israel. And I will say this. If the Jews laid down their weapons today, they would be destroyed and every single one of them killed.
And I don't understand how people how that doesn't process in their mind. It's genocide.
It is called ignorance.
It is.
It's called ignorance. But what would happen if Palestine, if they laid down all their weapons? You know what would happen? There'd be peace.
Yep.
That is the difference. Make no mistake, Israel did not start this fight. And I'm going to tell you, it was prophetic. And me and you talked about this a couple of weeks ago when Benjamin Netanyahu came out and said, we're not destroying Hamas. He says we are going to destroy Amalek.
Yeah.
And for people that don't know who Amalek is the grandson of Esau. And he is also a grandfather of, what is his name? Queen Esther. Haman, who also wanted to destroy and kill all of the Jews. And Benjamin Netanyahu, got on there and he says, from Joshua forward, God has commanded us to kick Amalek out of the land, and we have not done it. And Benjamin Netanyahu says, I am going to tell you, we're going to do it this time.
Wow.
He didn't call him Hamas. He called him Amalek.
So we've touched on a lot of dates, and I feel really strong to say this, and I'm going to try to do it in 2 minutes.
Yep.
Okay, how much time do I have?
You got 3.
Okay, to a preacher, that means nothing. So here's what I want to say. I want to say this to all people listening to your show, Lawrence. Go read Leviticus chapter 23, lays out 7 feast days. It's the menorah, the candlestick that all Judaism uses, 7 candlesticks. There's 7 sticks on this, 3 on each side, 1 in the center. On those 7 days, the Hebrew word for it is these are my moedim, which means appointed times, and they're forever. Go read this. Go read whatever translation you want to read it. And you have 7 days. Everything that Jesus Christ did as far as death, burial, resurrection happened exactly on those days. He was crucified on Passover. Matter of fact, on the 10th day, they selected the lamb. He was selected. He walked into Jerusalem. He rode into Jerusalem on the 10th day of the month of Nisan, and they literally selected him. The priest said, that's the man to pick. And the Bible said on the 10th day is when you select your lamb, what you're going to sacrifice on Passover. On Passover, he was crucified. Okay? The next day is unleavened bread. Well, when the sun goes down, that's a Hebrew day. And you can read through the Bible. When the sun went down, a man went and took Jesus down off the cross and laid him in his own tomb. He was buried on the unleavened bread, the Feast of Unleavened Bread. The following after that, it always falls on the first day of the week, which is Sunday. Okay, and this takes place every so many years. It takes place on Thursday. Jesus Christ was not crucified on Friday. Okay,
no.
Those numbers don't match. He was crucified on Thursday. That's
correct.
So, and because that's when it falls. It falls literally on Thursday.
Yes, it does.
And so he was crucified on Thursday. He was in the grave, and on the 3rd day he rose again. That's Resurrection Sunday, or first fruits. These feast days are listed in order. And he literally fulfilled each one of those. In 1 Corinthians chapter 15, Paul said that Jesus was our first fruits. 2 times he referred to Jesus as the first fruits. And then 50 days later was Pentecost, Acts chapter 2. That's when the Gentile church, or when the church really exploded and Christianity was actually born, Acts chapter 2, on Pentecost. First 4 days of those 7 in Leviticus chapter 23 have been fulfilled to the day. There's 3 left. What do we know for sure? At some point in time, the church is going to go up. At some point in time, Jesus is coming back, and at some point in time, we're going to be with God. Those three, and I'll leave it as a cliffhanger on that one, those three are left yet to be fulfilled. The first four were spring feast. The last three are harvest feast. What does
right.
Revelation talk about? Harvest, the grapes,
Harvest, that's
all
right.
of the harvest. Bring the sickle forth. All three of those days will be fulfilled to the day. God bless you. I'm out on that.
Thank y'all for having me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And hey, we're going to do a shout out to Todd Warner for sponsoring this show.
Yeah.
And I tell you, thank you guys so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
I know Chris wanted to be here. He couldn't.
Right. We miss him.
And yeah, we miss him terribly, but I tell you, this was very good. I'm glad you were both able to come in and help discuss what I've kind of done the research
Learned a
on.
lot today.
I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, I am too. So I will say this, we'll end it on this. God does everything the exact same time, the exact same day. He does not change.
You know what? It says he's the same yesterday, today, and forever. It's
That's
talking
right.
about he moves on the same days.
Yes. God bless you guys.
You too.
God bless the United States. God bless
Amen.
Tennessee. And God bless Lawrence County.
Amen.